The movie starts with a girl named Shaun walking down the street, crying. Suddenly, a car pulls up in front of her with an unknown person inside, and she decides to get in. Next, we see a boxing coach named Chul going to meet with the judging committee. He accuses them of taking bribes and causing his fighters to lose unfairly. The deputy director gets angry, calls Chul a failure, and tries to hit him, but Chul defends himself and punches him in the stomach, knocking him down. After that, they decide to fire Chul from his job. Sometime later, Chul gets in his car and heads to a quiet village where he's been hired as a teacher at a girls' school. His sister calls him, scolding him about what happened and warning him not to cause more trouble. He reassures her and says he's on his way to the village. As he gets close to the village, his car breaks down, so he calls a tow truck. While waiting, he notices a missing person flyer for a girl named Shaun, the same girl from the beginning of the film. When the tow truck arrives, Chul gets back on the road and enters the town. There, he sees a girl named Jean arguing with a group of girls who had torn down the missing posters for her friend Shaun. Chul tries to calm them down and asks them to stop fighting. Just then, a police officer named Song shows up and recognizes Chul. He used to train under him at the boxing club. Later, Jean visits Shaun's grandmother to check on her and brings her some medication. We find out that Shaun had been living with her grandmother ever since her parents died in a car crash. The grandmother says she's terrified because Shaun has been missing for a month with no news. Jean tries to comfort her and says she already reported it to the police, and she's sure they'll find her. Jean then goes into Shaun's room and sees a painting of butterflies, which brings back memories of the two of them wearing matching butterfly bracelets. She finds a keychain labeled Gino's and guesses it might be the place where Shaun used to work, so she decides to go there and investigate. That night, on her way back from the grandmother's house, Jean feels like someone is following her. The person seems like he's trying to kidnap her, but just in time, a bus arrives and she manages to get on safely. The next day, Chul goes to his new school. The principal tells him he'll be teaching math, and will also be responsible for collecting unpaid tuition fees from the students. He takes him to his room and gives him a list of students who haven't paid yet. While in the cafeteria looking for the students, Chul meets the school's owner, Ki-tae, a wealthy man who's also running for mayor. He greets Chul warmly. Chul looks at the list and notices that Jean is one of the students who hasn't paid, so he approaches her to talk. He also asks about Shaun, who's also on the list. Jean tells him she'll pay next month, and explains that Shaun is her close friend who's been missing for a month, then walks away. Later, Chul sees Jean jumping over the school wall and sneaking out, so he follows her. He finds her entering a bar called Gino's. The security tries to kick her out, but she runs upstairs looking for her friend. One of the guards catches her, but Chul steps in and gets her out after apologizing. As they're leaving, they see a girl working at the bar. Jean shows her a picture of Shaun and asks if she knows her. The girl gets nervous and denies knowing her, but says that someone named Esau, who's in charge of the girls, might know something. It's clear the girl is scared and hiding the truth. That night, Jean talks to Chul and tells him she reported everything to the police, but realize they don't care and aren't even looking for Shaun. Chul tries to calm her down and says he'll talk to Officer Song and follow up on the case himself. He asks for her address so he can give her a ride home, but Jean feels like he doesn't really care either, so she gets out of the car and walks alone. As she's walking, a car appears behind her. A man gets out, runs after her, and shocks her with a stun gun. She collapses and loses consciousness. At that moment, Chul realizes that Jean left her phone in his car, so he turns around to go look for her. While driving, he spots the man who tried to attack her, so he quickly chases after him, but the guy gets away. Then Chul finds Jean unconscious on the ground and rushes her to the hospital. At the hospital, two detectives show up to question Jean. They tell her they'll investigate the assault, but she insists that the attacker is likely the same person who kidnapped her friend Shaun. Just like before, they ignore what she says and leave. Chul steps outside to talk to Officer Song and asks why the police aren't taking Shaun's disappearance seriously. Song tells him the force is busy with the upcoming mayoral elections, and besides, a lot of girls have been running away from home. They assume Shaun did the same. This makes Chul feel like something suspicious is happening in the village. Later, he meets with Song again and gives him a report he wrote himself about Shaun's disappearance. He asks him to submit it to the prosecution since the police clearly aren't doing anything. Back at school, Chul notices cigarette smoke coming from the girls' bathroom. He goes in and asks the students to hand over the cigarettes, but they deny everything. Chul decides to look around himself, and that's when he finds a hidden mini camera inside the bathroom. He checks the camera footage and discovers that the art teacher, Ki, is the one who installed it. When he opens Ki's laptop, He finds videos of several girls in the bathroom. He also finds a message from Jean saying she's waiting outside the school to get his help in searching for Shaun, along with another message from Shaun on the day she disappeared. She had asked Ki for a ride. At this point, Chul starts suspecting that Ki might be the one who kidnapped Shaun. Meanwhile, Jean gets in a car with Ki. Chul calls her and tells her he saw the messages and realized that Ki was the last person to see Shaun before she vanished. He could be behind everything. While on the phone, Jean notices a butterfly-shaped keychain hanging from Ki's car keys. That confirms what Chul said. She knows Shaun loved butterflies. Jean tries to hint to Chul that she's with Ki without making Ki suspicious. She texts Chul, telling him that Ki is taking her to his apartment. Jean then asks Ki about the keychain. He says Shaun gave it to him as a gift. She directly asks, "Were you in contact with Shaun on the day she disappeared?" He gets angry, hits her on the head, and she blacks out. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied up in his home. By chance, she finds Shaun's phone in one of the drawers, proving Ki really is involved in her disappearance. But Ki denies everything. He says he didn't hurt her and doesn't know where she went. At that moment, Chul arrives at the house. He breaks down the door, confronts Ki, and starts beating him, shouting, "What did you do to Shaun? Why do you have her phone?" Ki finally talks. He says that on the day Shaun disappeared, she sent him a message asking for a ride. She got in the car and seemed really scared of something. On the way, they stopped at a gas station, and she stepped out to take a phone call. After the call, she told him someone else was coming to pick her up and asked him to leave. He says he drove off, but felt uneasy, so he came back to check on her, but she was gone. He saw an abandoned warehouse nearby and looked inside, but all he found was her broken phone on the ground. Chul asks, "Why didn't you report this to the police?" He says he was scared. Since he was the last one to see her, he thought the police would immediately suspect him. Suddenly, they hear a police car pulling up. Jean tells Chul she already called the cops and reported that Ki tried to kidnap her. The police arrest Ki and take him to the station. There, Chul talks to a detective and hands over Shaun's phone, asking him to recover the last number she called. But the detective brushes him off and tells him to leave the station. Chul steps outside and talks to Officer Song again, telling him the detective is purposely ignoring the case. He asks Song to get the phone repaired and follow up on the lead himself. At the same time, the detective calls Jiang, the bar owner where Shaun used to work, and tells him Chul found Shaun's phone and wants to retrieve the last call. Jiang orders him not to fix the phone. Later, the detective goes to meet with Kitai. He explains everything that happened, and Kitai loses his temper and hits him. It's revealed that Kitai is actually behind Shaun's disappearance, and he's been bribing the police to cover it up. At school, Chul and his colleagues read the news about Ki being arrested for installing cameras in the girls' bathroom. Chul finds out Jean is the one who leaked the news online. He calls her and warns her that what she did could get her into serious trouble, but she tells him she doesn't care. She just wants to find her best friend, Shaun. Then she walks away. Shortly after, Chul receives a summons from Kitai's office. Kitai fires him from the school for digging into Shaun's disappearance. Chul is left confused and unsure what to do, until he gets a call from Officer Song. Song tells him they found a report about a girl's body under the bridge. It might be Shaun. Chul rushes to the scene and finds Jean already there. When Jean sees the body, she breaks down in tears. It's Shaun. Chul tries to comfort her. Meanwhile, Song takes Shaun's phone to a repair shop. Once the phone is fixed, he calls Chul and tells him the last number Shaun called belonged to Jiang. He also says there was a message from a girl named Isol saying she was really worried about Shaun. Right after the call, Jiang's men ambush Song. They knock him out, steal Shaun's phone, and run. Chul heads to the bar and finds Isol. He asks her what happened the night Shaun disappeared. Isol explains that Shaun used to work there as a singer. One night, Kitai was sitting with the chief of police, bribing him to help win the mayoral election. Shaun went to the bathroom to call her grandmother, who was sick. Suddenly, Kitai followed her in. Shaun told him she was a student at his school and asked to leave so she could check on her grandma. But Kitai got angry. Then the police chief walked in, grabbed Shaun, and forced her out of the bar. Later, Kitai confronted Jiang and yelled at him for hiring a student from his school, saying it could ruin his reputation. But Jiang told him Shaun was working there to help pay off her family's debts and promised she wouldn't tell anyone. While they were talking, they suddenly heard the chief of police screaming. When they rushed over, they saw him in pain. He claimed Shaun had hit him when he tried to sexually assault her, and that she'd run away. Jiang got furious and called Shaun to find out where she was. She told him she was waiting at a gas station. He told her to stay put until he got there. Back in the present, Jiang's men find out Chul is at the bar. They go after him, but Chul stands up to them and asks to talk peacefully. Instead, the men attack him and start beating him up. Chul loses it. He fights back, beats up Jiang's men, then punches Jiang himself and shouts, "Did you kill Shaun?" Jiang denies it. He tells Chul that when he got to the gas station to find Shaun, she wasn't there. But he noticed an old abandoned warehouse nearby, and when he went in to look for her, he saw someone in a mask strangling her. When he got closer, he realized it was Kitai's son, and it turns out, Kitai's son is actually Ki, the art teacher. Meanwhile, Jean is in the hospital bathroom. Suddenly, Ki appears behind her and chokes her until she passes out. Back at the bar, Chul steps outside and gets a call from Officer Song. He tells him a gang jumped him and stole Shaun's phone, and Ki just escaped police custody. Then Chul gets another call. It's Jin's mother. She says her daughter is missing from the hospital. Chul puts it all together and realizes Ki kidnapped her. He heads to Ki's house. Jin wakes up and finds herself face to face with Ki. He speaks calmly, telling her he's not a criminal like his father. He remembers the moment Kitai saw Shaun dead. Kitai took the phone from Jiang, smashed it, and beat Ki, warning him to stay quiet. We learn that Ki has been struggling mentally for years, suffering from his father's constant abuse. Chul arrives at Ki's house but finds it empty. He notices an address written on a board and rushes to that location. At that same moment, Ki hears someone trying to open the secret room door. He quickly hides Jin inside a wardrobe. Kitai enters and asks why Ki is hiding. Ki panics. Kitai tells him he's sending him to the US until the elections are over. But Ki refuses. He says he wants to stay and finish school. Kitai snaps, calls him a murderer. Ki denies it, and finally tells the truth. He says on the night of the incident, he was trying to protect Shaun from Jiang, not kill her. Shaun was still alive when Kitai walked into the warehouse. She begged him to let her live and promised not to tell anyone. But Kitai, fearing a scandal, decided to strangle her himself. Back in the present, Kitai punches Ki. Then he hears Jin's voice from inside the wardrobe. He moves to open it, but his phone rings. It's the chief of police, saying the election results are almost in. Kitai leaves. Ki returns to Jin and tells her she's free to go. He promises he won't hurt her, but she doesn't trust him. When he tries to open the wardrobe, she sprays him in the face with colored spray paint and runs. She makes it to the basement and hides under a table. Ki searches for her and spots her feet. At that moment, Chul arrives at the house and begins searching. In the basement, Ki is furious. He starts smashing things. Jin tries to escape but steps on glass, cuts her leg, and falls. Chul hears the sound, breaks down the basement door, and finds Jin on the floor, bleeding from her neck. A piece of glass is stuck in her. He pulls it out and tries to stop the bleeding. Suddenly, Ki attacks him and stabs him in the stomach with scissors. Chul fights back and knocks Ki out. Then he picks up Jin and rushes her to the car. He's bleeding badly himself. Meanwhile, Kitai wins the election. He's now officially the village mayor. On the way to the hospital, Jin tells Chul that it wasn't Ki who killed Shaun, it was Kitai. Chul is stunned. At the hospital, Chul sees the news report on Kitai's victory. He makes a decision. He's going after him. He jumps in his car and crashes into Kitai's vehicle. Kitai steps out, and one of his bodyguards attacks Chul, but Chul takes him down. Then he confronts Kitai. Kitai laughs it off. He says he's in power now, untouchable. But Chul smashes the car window with his bare hand. Just then, police cars arrive. Kitai assumes they're here to arrest Chul, but to his shock, they're there for him. Chul finds out that Officer Song reported everything to the prosecution, and arrest warrants were issued for both Kitai and Ki. The next day, Chul visits Jin at the hospital to check on her. After that, he gets in his car and drives away, leaving the village behind and heading back to the city where he was born. And that's how the film ends. Don't forget to tell us what you think about the movie. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's hit our first 1,000 subs. See you next time with a new movie summary.